Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my Achieving Perfection episode for the Spreading Chaos node in Doomskar Claimants. So that's going to be the Boast node. So, let's get into it. Doomskar Claimants is the new PvP Coalition event that is coming into Puzzle Quest with Kaldheim. So there are going to be 3 nodes. The node that I'm going to be going over in this video is going to be the Spreading Chaos node, which is the top node. Now, for this top node, this Spreading Chaos, we're going to have a permanent support. It's going to be a blue-black-red support. And it's going to read when a creature attacks, the first card on that creature's owner's hand gains X mana, where X is the creature's base power. And then when a creature boasts, deals 6 damage to that creature's opponent's planeswalker. So the reason that it's worded the way that it is that if your opponent boasts, then they're going to deal 6 damage to you. And if you boast, you're going to do 6 damage to your opponent. Now, what's really nice is that all of the different nodes in this event, and that includes the Spreading Chaos node, are going to have permanent supports that help to enable the mechanic that they are pushing on you to use from the new set. So this one is going to be helping Boast, and as we take a look at our objectives for the Spreading Chaos node, we need to win the fight for 5 ribbons. We need to use Boast abilities 4 or more times during the fight for 3 ribbons, and we need to deal 20 or more damage in the turn for 2 ribbons. So for a total of up to 10 ribbons per match. Now you notice that the Spreading Chaos support here is going to help you with both of the objectives. So it's going to make it so that when a creature you control attacks, you gain mana, which you can then drain to Boast. And when you do boast, you're going to do damage directly to your opponent's planeswalker, which is going to help you deal that 20 or more damage in a turn. The thing that you're really going to need to be the most careful of is to make sure that you are indeed boasting 4 times and not killing your opponent before you boast those 4 times. That's going to be the trickiest part of this particular node. Now I'm going to go ahead and show off the pre-made decks that I have for newer players and players with more advanced collections, and then I'll get into deck building just for anyone who can't make either of those 2 decks or someone who's just maybe more in between those 2 decks. So the first deck that I made is going to be for newer players, and that's going to be this Koth of the Hammer deck right here. And I made it with Koth of the Hammer because red happens to have the best common and uncommon boast creatures. There's going to be a little bit more background noise in the videos for this particular Achieving Perfection series. We're out of town, and so you're going to be hearing my kids a little bit more. We're sort of in the same general area. But the 2 creatures that I like the most for this are going to be Fearless Liberator, which is going to have a boast cost of 3, which is very easy to accomplish. And it also happens to have 3 base power, so the event support for Spreading Chaos is just automatically going to give you the mana to boast Fearless Liberator. So it's just going to be a free boast every single turn. And then the other one is going to be Hagimob, which is a 5/4 with Berserker and also boast 3, which means that as you're going to be gaining 5 mana for this thing attacking, you're going to be able to automatically boast this one too. So both of these are creatures that you're just going to automatically be able to boast for. Ideally, you're going to be boasting twice a turn between the Hagimob and the Fearless Liberator. And the third creature for this deck, you'll notice that these are the only 2 visible creatures apart from, I guess, Sanctuary Smasher, but you shouldn't be casting that, are going to be the Dwarf tokens, because you're going to be getting Dwarf tokens from Fearless Liberator, which is going to create Dwarf tokens. You're going to be getting Dwarf tokens from Dwarven Reinforcements, and you're going to be getting Dwarf tokens from Dwarven Mine. So you get a whole bunch of things that are going to make Dwarf tokens. So beyond the idea of getting these little boasters down, this is a Koth deck, and so you want to make sure that you have gem conversion. And that's where we have Dwarven Mine, which is going to convert 2 to red. I've got Notvold's Slumber Mound, which is also going to convert 2 to red. And then I've got Spikefield Hazard, which for land forming is going to create a Spikefield Cave support that's also going to convert 2 gems to red. So this is going to make it so that you're going to get an absolutely incredible amount of mana. The Sanctuary Smasher is in the deck because if you cycle this creature, you get to permanently give a creature you control first strike. And so as the Hagimob has Berserker, you're going to want to make sure that you get first strike on this thing so it just absolutely melts your opponent's creatures. And so between this thing melting your opponent's creatures with Berserker and First Strike, and then having other things in the deck that can deal direct damage, like Volcanic Geyser, which can do up to 10 damage to any target, or the Spike Field Hazard, which is going to do 2. Ideally, this should give you enough control so that you're able to stay in the match and not have to really worry about getting wrecked by your opponent, right? You'll be able to overpower them and complete the match. Demolish is in here to destroy your opponent's supports, as there's going to be plenty of pesky supports in this event. And then Thrill of Possibility is in here. It's a card that is the most easily swapped out from the deck. And so what you do is you're using this just for additional card draw, because card draw is very important, right? Especially for a Koth deck. Now, if you were to swap some of the things out, like what are the essential pieces? Really, the essential pieces are having Fearless Liberator and having Hagimop, right? If you have these 2 cards, then put them in your mono red deck. It might be that you're running Origins Chandra. It might be that you're running Koth. It might even be that you decide to run some other red-based walker. Domri Raid is a fantastic one because Domri is going to enable you to fetch creatures, but that's a dual color walker, so that's a little bit more advanced. For the deck that I'm personally planning to use for this event, I'm going to be running Nissa of Shadowed Boast. I use her in pretty much every event now. She's kind of my go-to walker. She's absolutely an S tier for me, and I'm going to be using this deck right here. So I personally really like the combination of Varagoth, Bloodsky Sire for one of my boasters, and then Eradicator Valkyrie for my other. So the Varagoth Bloodsky Sire is going to make it so that with Boast 8, we pick one of the first 4 different cards from our library, fetch it, and give it half of its mana. Which means that if we fetch a card that costs 16 mana or more, then that's going to give it enough mana to be able to boast the following turn also. Now, I know that the event support is going to give us enough mana to do that, but nonetheless, if you take a look at the deck, we've got the Valkyrie, which costs 16, we've got the Bridge that costs 20, we've got Turn Timber that costs 18, and we've got Ruinous Ultimatum, which costs 22. So if you fetch any of those 4 cards, you can go ahead and fetch them to make sure that you can definitely power Varagoth's Boast ability the following turn. And at the very least, if you're getting the higher mana cost cards in your deck and giving them half mana, that's going to make it a lot easier to cast them. I've tried this deck out in a number of different matches without the support, and it's very effective. The reason I like Eradicator Valkyrie is because it gives us some control, and there's one of the nodes in this event in particular that's going to require you to run very heavy control. And so as a result of that, you're going to want to be able to have more ways to kill your opponent's creatures, because you very well may wind up running into just some slog matches where you have to be able to outmatch your opponent's control. And I really like Eradicator Valkyrie for this purpose, especially because it has destroy the first other creature you control if you do destroy the first opposing creature. And so with the Prismatic Bridge, which is going to be fetching us a creature every turn, and it's ideally going to get us an Esika out, right? And so with Esika has Vigilance, it's going to be put in the first creature slot. And so this will be the target for the Eradicator Valkyrie to be killing every single turn as we're boasting between the Valkyrie and Varagoth to make sure that we achieve that boast 4 times. For the rest of the deck, I've got both Turn Timber Symbiosis to fetch creatures, and I've also got Nylea Keen-Eyed to fetch creatures. The added bonus to Nylea Keen-Eyed is that it's going to give mana to all of the creatures in your hand at end of turn, which is going to enable you to boast a little bit more. I've got Nissa's Revelation in here for the combination of card draw and life gain, both of which are very important. I've got Castle Garenbrig to serve as some gem conversion, along with Realms Uncharted as a way to fetch my Turn Timber and my Hagra Mauling, which is my other removal card, as it's going to give me gem conversion and it's going to kill something. So this deck is very effective. Nissa's third ability, Reclaim Zendikon, is going to make it so that it's going to be way easier for you to come back from matches where your opponents are killing all of your creatures, because you just get to bring all of your things back from the graveyard and then play them with additional power. So she's going to make it really easy to complete that node. And so this is what I'm personally going to be running for the Boast node. Now, if you're wondering, well, Nalthazar, I can't make either of those decks. What do I do? Well, that's what I'm here for, right? So you're going to go to your collection, you're going to go ahead, scroll over to Kaldheim, and then you're just going to type in Boast, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the deck that you make has to be based on the cards with Boast that you have. And if you're wondering, are there any other cards that have Boast that I really like that I'm not using in my deck? I really like the Dragonkin Berserker, actually. I think this is an absolutely phenomenal card for the node. However, I personally feel like this card is a little bit too dangerous to run because it's going to be hitting for 5, it's going to be creating a 5/5 flying dragon token, and it's going to be pinging your opponent for 6 for boasting. So it's going to be swinging for at least 11, and then after the first turn, it's just going to be doing more and more and more damage every turn, as that it's going to go up to 16 and then to 21, and it's just going to sort of snowball out of control. And with an opponent that has a lower health total, you'll find that you kill them before you can do all of your boasting. So I love the Dragonkin Berserker, but I wouldn't use it for this node. You might also be tempted to use something like Harnfell, Horn of Bounty, because it has on the bottom when a creature you control boasts, gain loyalty, and give that creature double strike. But you're going to be killing your opponent easily enough anyways, so I really would not suggest doing something like this, because once again, you may find that you kill your opponent a little bit too quickly. As for some other Boast cards that I do like, though, I do really like Sword of the Realms and Halvar, God of Battle. The downside to this one is that you have to have the Sword of the Realms down and then Halvar. And so as a result, because you've got an equipment down and then you've got the creature and you're giving things double strike, you're going to run into a similar issue as Harnfell and the Berserker, where you may kill your opponent too quickly. Arnie is nice because Arnie is going to cost only 9 mana. It's a pretty cheap creature and it can power up pretty high with its Boast ability. And if you have another creature with pretty high power. And then that really is honestly about it in terms of good creatures that have Boast. I know that there are some masterpieces like a Darkar Valkyrie and Heavenly Blade Master. A Darkar Valkyrie is a good card. Heavenly Blade Master is going to kill your opponent too fast, so I wouldn't use this one either. And so really what it comes down to is you want to be able to make a deck where you're not killing your opponent too quickly, and you're making sure that you can boast 4 times, because 4 times is going to actually be quite a fair number of times to boast. You've got other cards with Boast in the set, things like Usher of the Fallen, which can create human tokens, which on its own isn't bad, or Horizon Seeker, which is going to be able to boast and convert 2 gems to your Planeswalker's colors, which also on its own isn't bad. But the problems for both of those is just that those are both green and white, and we really don't have any other green or white cards that I feel are particularly good for this node, where you're not just going to be overwhelming and killing your opponent. So if you can, and you have the cards for it, I would personally suggest that you either go red or you go black for this node with the Eradicator Valkyrie Varagoth combo, or if you're running something like Haggy Mob or Arnie Broken Brow or the Fearless Liberator. So once you've got those in your deck, make sure that you're running enough control to be able to combat the stuff your opponents are doing. If you haven't seen the other objectives yet, if you take a look at this Return of the Aenir that I've got on the left, the Extinguisher is going to make it so that you're going to have to kill 4 or more creatures of the same type during a fight. And so if you get paired against a deck that is intended for that Return of the Aenir, you're going to want to make sure that you have a way around the really heavy removal decks. And so just keep that in mind as you're deck building, so that you've not only got removal in your deck, but that you can then also overwhelm them and take them out. So those are my thoughts on this particular node. I hope that this is helpful for you and it helps you go perfect. One last time before I sign this video off, I'm going to go ahead and show you the 2 decks that I would recommend, and then we'll call it good. So remember, the first one is a Koth deck, and this is if you don't have as much at your disposal. I was finding that I had quite a bit of success with this deck, even in Platinum, because I do all of my testing in Platinum. And I actually went up against like an all mythic angel deck and completely stomped it with this, which was pretty fun. And then with the other deck, the one that I'm planning on running, is definitely a slower deck than I would normally run, but you kind of have to make sure that you're running a slower deck for this node so that you boast 4 times. And so it's going to be this Varagoth and Eradicator Valkyrie deck. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you're running anything different in the comment section, or if you think that there's anything that I missed for this particular node, and I will see you in the next one.